Hello, and welcome to the State of Soy. I'm your host, Aaron Putsey. Fact or fiction? It's difficult to know sometimes when scanning the labels of your favorite food or reading the menu at the local diner. In a rush to make sales, brands, retailers, and even some farmers market vendors seem intent on placing science and reality on the back shelf. Instead, they feature a wild assortment of claims and adjectives like all natural, hormone-free, sustainably sourced, grass-finished, antibiotic-free, and local, to name just a few. These claims sound good, but have little to no meaning. After all, where's the unnatural food? And how local is local? And isn't meat sold in the local supermarket required to be free of antibiotics? Here to discuss the wild, wild west of food labels and its consequences on farmers, consumers, and retailers are Michelle Hurd. Michelle serves as president of the Iowa Grocery Industry Association. Cristen Clark is a soybean, corn, and pig farmer from Runnels, Iowa, and a popular blogger. And Dr. Ruth MacDonald, chair and professor of the Department of Food Science and Human Nutrition at Iowa State University. Welcome, Michelle, Cristen, and Ruth. So, Ruth, I want to start with you because science, even though it's not always a part of the conversation, it really needs to be. So I'd like to start at that 35,000-foot level because knowing some science behind food and food production is critical, isn't it?
Yeah, science has really been important in our food system from the 1930s when we first established laws about how food could be sold and what could be in food. And the government, in science-based mode, has tested all of the ingredients that are allowed to be in the food supply, and there's scientific evidence for their safety. And I think that's getting lost in some of our dialogue today because people think that it's just a random decision about what is in the food and how it's being used. And it really isn't. It's really based on science.
And I know, Cristen, as a farmer, you hear some of those, and I have to ask you, which one of those adjectives or those descriptors that you as a farmer, when you hear it, it just rings in your ear because you know, as Ruth just pointed out, you know what goes on behind the scenes. Give me an idea, one or two that stand out to you.
Well, Aaron, I'm going to have to go with antibiotic-free and hormone-free.
Okay.
Now, we know that all animals, living animals, have hormones anyway, but especially in pork and poultry production since the 1950s, we have not been able to use, because it was illegal, hormones in pork and poultry production. Antibiotic-free, as farmers, antibiotics are very expensive, and our animals don't do well when they're ill. We do the best job we can, biosecurity, keeping germs and disease at bay, keeping ourselves clean to take care of those animals. But I'm going to have to tell you, when I see antibiotic-free meat, I know when we ship our hogs that if they've had an injection with something, we have to wait an appropriate amount of time so that's out of their system before we ship that product or that animal.
Right. And I sometimes when I hear the word local too, I know there are a lot of definitions, and that's not neither good nor bad, but I think it's important for consumers to understand that there's a lot behind, these labels and the different adjectives and the different descriptors given to food. And Michelle, being in the grocery and the retail business and given the association that you represent, covers a lot of ground and represents a lot of people on the retail side of things, I would imagine for you that it takes effort to make sure that you're accessing resources that can be of value to your retailers. Share a little bit of that side of the story.
Sure. Consumers really look to retailers to provide clear, easy to understand information about their food. And I think that's where it's really important with conversations like we're having today with the different segments of the industry, the Iowa Food and Family Project. Those are great resources for retailers to build relationships from different segments of the industry, farmers. And we've really appreciated being a part of that conversation. I think it's a great tool for our retailers to help provide consumers the information that they're looking for.
Well, as part of this conversation, there's no better place to go for a question than to a farmer. So let's go there now.
My name's Skylar Bardol, and I'm a farmer. I'm comfortable using GMOs on my farm. I'm comfortable eating them and serving them to my family, but recognize that there are some people who would like the choice of using GMO or non-GMO. But my question is, at what point does it become misleading to the consumer when there's not a GMO option, but is advertised as non-GMO and then sold at a premium?
So Ruth, your response to that kind of question?
So I think that we are fortunate in our country to have a lot of options and choice. And I think giving people the non-GMO option is what they want. I think it becomes very misleading from the perspective of whether that is a safer or a healthier option. And there's no evidence that it is. So it becomes a little bit misleading when consumers believe that they're buying a product that is safer or is healthier for them or their family because it says non-GMO. There just isn't any evidence that GMOs are harmful or that they're a risk to anyone's health. So that's where it becomes misleading in my mind. I think that it's the choice option is important, but consumers need to understand why they're buying those products and what the reasons are for them to buy those products. It's not about health and safety.
Which is why we're having this conversation, because information is really empowering. It's empowering for the consumer. It's important that they do know what's in their food, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you know, there is a tremendous amount of gray area that as a consumer you have to navigate. And the way to navigate that and get through the misleading claims is to educate yourself and find those resources like Iowa Food and Family Project, or a food blogger like me who does blog about the farm and what crops actually are GMO that are available. So I think just getting out there and learning from people is the best thing to do. Whether you're a farmer, learning about what the consumer wants, or the consumer getting to know, what crops there are actually that are GMO that are available.
Information is power, best for the consumer, for the retailer, and for the farmer too.